Picture a world where your messages flow effortlessly, resonating with your audience on multiple levels and forging connections that stand the test of time. That's precisely what we're delving into today as we unpack the dynamic OASIS model and explore how it can elevate your digital signage content and communications campaigns. This is how to get your shaker maker to go supersonic, some might say, so that you can roll with it and turn your communications into a wonder wall that is a champagne supernova.
That's awesome.
There's a lot of OASIS references there, and I don't even particularly like them. But to walk through the 5 pillars of OASIS and give us some practical tips, I'm here with Debbie DeWitt, Marketing Communications Manager for Visix. Hi, Deb.
Hi, Derek. And I do like OASIS.
Well, there you go. Deb's going to go let it all out. And of course, we want to say, don't go away, but listen to this episode of Digital Signage Done Right. You can also follow along with a transcript on the Visix website. You can subscribe and you can even review us, which would be awfully nice, especially on IMDb. Whether you're using digital signage or not, our podcast gives you practical tips for communications and content to better engage your audience. I'm Derek DeWitt. Welcome to Digital Signage Done Right. So, as we've said many times, you need a good communications plan in place before you even start designing your digital signage content.
That's right. It's pretty basic advice, I think, but a lot of the people we deal with who are tasked with managing digital signage aren't necessarily trained in communication strategy. And
usually they have another job, a full-time job besides this.
Yeah, absolutely. So sometimes people get caught up, we see, like in this wheel of just like churn out that content, get something on screen, and they wind up not working from a plan, and it kind of hurts the audience.
Since it's the beginning of a new year, it's kind of the perfect time to get such a plan together.
Yes, it is. January is the perfect time for planning. And there are lots of frameworks out there you can use, but today I want to concentrate on the OASIS model.
All right, let's see if this one fits your style. So what is the OASIS model?
So OASIS is just a series of steps to help you plan your communications or your campaigns, and in our case, your digital signage content. The goal is to give you a consistent model, that you can use over time across all of your communications.
Where's it come from? Who created this model?
It was created by the UK's Government Communications Service, and we'll actually link out to their site in the transcript so you can go to the source. And I couldn't find the full origin story online, but I know it's been around since at least 2014.
So obviously OASIS, it's all caps, it's an acronym. What does it stand for?
Well, the 5 pillars or steps you need to create a campaign using OASIS are objectives,
O,
audience and insight,
A,
strategy or ideas,
S,
implementation,
I,
and scoring and evaluation.
S, though 3 of those are doing double work, so I think
it's a bit of a cheat, right?
They kind of had to squeeze that into.
But then again, if you look back at those things, it doesn't really flow off the tongue as an acronym. So I get why they went OASIS.
Right, sure. All right, so let's delve into each of these 5 pillars. The first one in the OASIS model is to define your project objectives.
Yes, and your objectives should be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
Which is another acronym known as SMART goals.
Oh yes, be warned, there are several nested acronyms within acronyms in this framework.
It's like those Russian dolls.
Yeah.
So let's step through SMART real quick before we continue with this objectives business. SMART.
Right, so S is specific, which is pretty self-explanatory, I think. Don't just say, I want this campaign to increase engagement. Say instead something like, I want this campaign to increase attendance at this event, or I want to get more people to sign up for benefits in the first week. Be specific.
Right. The M is measurable. That's a big one. Again, we always stress the importance of calls to action that you can measure. So like using a URL or a short URL or a QR code to send people to, an event ticket outlet or benefits sign up form or something, allows you to pretty easily track the analytics to see how many hits you got from that specific call to action.
Yeah, and even more specific, that URL or QR that leads to a URL should only be used in this campaign. And in addition to that, if you use the same one in emails, posters, on your digital signs, you won't know where your traffic came from.
Right.
So the next two, A and R, are achievable and relevant. This is also pretty simple. It means don't set goals you can't possibly meet. And make sure they're relevant to your organization within the larger business strategy. And I know this seems like really common
Our goal is to take over the world.
Actually, that is my goal. So, but no, it's possible. And especially when you look at if you've got goals being set by maybe people who are outside of the team that has to achieve them. That happens a lot. Unfortunately, it does. It's like, we need you to do this by this time. You got to be able to push back and go, that's not achievable. Right. And look at it and go, that's not relevant within, say, our SWOT analysis or our big strategy that we all worked out, a couple of months ago. This does not apply to that.
Right. And then the T in SMART means time bound, which is kind of, what does that mean? But it just means put a time frame on the campaign. Don't try and do this for something that you're showing like on your digital signs every day forever. But, if it makes sense, have some kind of a time frame for something to happen, how long it's going to run, and when it should end.
Yeah. I mean, your event schedule is going to be on your screens at all times, but we always say, we really don't recommend you schedule anything for always, at least in our Access TV Signage Suite software. So put that time frame in there. If you have to run something, it's some continuous thing like a recycling program or something that is continuous, at least try maybe changing up that call to action, that URL, that QR, so you can say, well, the results for this month or this quarter are specific. Defining objectives using the SMART model basically are supposed to help you focus your efforts. Your objectives should be numerical whenever possible. You want to quantify things when you can and focus on outcomes instead of output.
Right. Knowing that you got 1,000 people to visit your benefit sign-up form, that's not success. Getting 1,000 people to submit the form is.
Right. And if you actually had 1,000 visits, but only 500 signed up, you can take a look at that form and say, what do we need to do differently to get those results, those outcomes?
Right. So the first step in OASIS is objectives, and your objectives should be SMART. The second step, or pillar of the OASIS model, is to identify project audiences and insights.
Right. This is one of those where they use two words instead of one, but they're very related. I mean, we always talk about your audience is everything. Is it internal? Is it external? And you have to know their demographics and preferences to get them to engage and really connect with your messaging.
And you might have multiple audiences. Like if you're a university campus, you have students, you have faculty, you have staff, which is not the same thing as faculty, and then you have the general public, all very different groups of people.
Yeah, and you need to have different audience insights and personas for each of those groups. And you may even have subgroups within those groups. Each audience is going to have different needs and expectations. So you have to think about this early in the planning stages.
So that's the audience part of that step. But the subheading of that is also insights, but we're not counting the I in the acronym. What do they mean by insights into your audience?
Insights are getting specific in your questions about your audience. Who is the content or campaign aimed at? Do you just need to inform them about something? Are you trying to motivate them to act or change their behavior? What are the barriers to meeting your objectives with that audience? It's really about just getting a full understanding of your audience and how you're going to move them to that desired outcome.
Yeah, and I'd say accessibility and DEI are also something to think about during this stage. Are you being inclusive? Not because that's what you're supposed to do today, but because being inclusive means more people are going to be engaged and you're probably going to have more people doing whatever it is you want them to do.
Absolutely. You always have to make sure you're not favoring one audience or demographic over another unless that's the target of that campaign.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so that's the O, and the A. The first S is develop communications strategies and ideas.
And ideas in parentheses, that's another one of those where they doubled up. But in general, this is figuring out the right communication method, or medium. Is it meetings? Is it emails? Is it web and social? Is it digital signage?
Or is it all of them?
Yeah, or you might just have a mix of just a few of those. But in terms of digital signage content, it can also mean figuring out the best type of media to present that communication. You know, is it a video? Is it a data visualization? Is it a series of messages with some cute mascot you've come up with? You know, this is where you figure out your messaging copy, your design, and your scheduling.
And you can test or even pilot some of the content in advance before you launch it organization-wide, just to test its effectiveness and tweak.
Yeah, and you just want to make sure whatever you do ties back to those SMART objectives and your audience insights.
Okay. The I in OASIS, the fourth pillar, is implement the communication plan.
Execute, execute, execute.
You sound like a Dalek.
Execute. Yeah, this is where you need to execute your plan. Actually put it into motion. Get your communications and campaigns onto your screens. You know, make sure your content plan properly allocates resources and sets out timelines for delivery. So resources could be graphic designers, communications people, marketing people checking your copy.
IT.
Yeah, IT, you know, going out and setting those timelines we already talked about as part of your SMART goals. And you definitely want to stick to the schedule you determined in the strategy step.
Right. If you change things during the time that you're running the experiment, you can't measure what you set out to measure if you change parameters halfway through.
Exactly. You got to go apples to apples. You know, it's the law of troubleshooting. Change one thing at a time.
Yeah.
So we're not saying you can't be flexible and react to feedback, which we're going to talk about a little more next. You want to monitor the effectiveness of your content, but I will say you should really review and refresh your plan after each of these 5 stages, not just here, not after you put it out. You want to take a look at it because each step or pillar is going to inform probably both the ones coming after it and before it.
Okay. And the last S, the final pillar of the OASIS model, is scoring an evaluation, meaning measuring the success of the communication or content plan. How'd you do?
Yeah, it's essential you get feedback for the scoring and evaluation phase. You can use those success measures you set up, like we were talking about form submissions or, you know, event tickets, I think was our other example. You want to use those to put together quantifiable data for progress against your objectives, progress to goals. And in addition to those data sets or analytics, if you're using web or whatever, you want to do some informal surveys to get some softer audience feedback. Once you have all of that, you can analyze the data and comments and identify the areas you need to improve and any changes you need to make, whether it be for this campaign or a future one. And also be sure, this is my big one, be sure you share the results with all the team members so you can get different perspectives. Don't just do a knee-jerk reaction and say, it didn't work, change everything. Or it didn't work, tell graphic design to try some new design. Get everybody back in the room. Maybe you'll find out your goal needs to be adjusted or it's just one little aspect. Like we said, maybe don't put a URL on that message. Put a QR tag, you know, something like that.
And again, and this just can't be stressed enough, this is not a one-time thing. Deb's kind of alluded to this. This is a process, an ongoing process. The OASIS model already has a sort of evaluation component baked into it. And then at the end of all 5 steps or pillars, you need to reevaluate again, adjust, and then do it again.
Yeah, I mean, OASIS is a framework where you want to outline everything you need, but the big focus is on monitor and adjust constantly. And for digital signage managers, you know, you can create a quick OASIS framework for each campaign you're doing, or you could do it for a content group like, let me think, student summer school communications or whatever.
Yeah, which would be totally different than top of the semester, opening of the semester communications.
Right. You know, don't get overwhelmed. Don't think, oh, okay, I have to do this plan for everything I'm going to do this year. No, It could be month by month. You know, it can be campaign by campaign. It's just, again, it's a framework that lets you focus in on what's important. And realistically, you'll need to rework the written plan a lot as you learn what works and what doesn't.
Right. And each time you learn something about a plan and make adjustments, it'll help you be more efficient in planning out the next one.
Yeah, that's why I actually would recommend you start small. I would recommend doing this for one campaign because, as we said, there are a lot of models out there. There are a lot of communications plan tips and frameworks you can use. OASIS might work for you. It might not. It depends on your organization and what you're trying to achieve. So I would start small, maybe do this with a campaign, see if it works for you. And then once you've really got the hang of it, you could then expand.
Right. So to recap, the 5 steps or pillars of the OASIS framework are objectives. What are you trying to do? Audience, who you're trying to do it for, and some insight into them. Strategy, ideas on how you're going to do it. Implementation, doing it. And then testing, so doing it maybe small scale, giving a test and tweaking, and then scoring, evaluating how it all went and adjusting again.
ROI.
Yeah, basically.
I think we've mentioned this once or twice.
I think ROI might have been mentioned. Just go up into the search bar on the Visix website and type it in, and you'll probably get a hit or two.
More than you wanted.
Yeah, right.
More than you knew was possible.
Right. So there you have it, a pretty comprehensive overview of the OASIS model with a practical framework to improve your digital signage content thrown into the mix. By following these 5 steps, you can create a communications plan that addresses both your own objectives and your audience's needs. And you will learn very quickly that the two things are completely interrelated, or at least they should be.
Oh, every time. Audience first.
Yeah.
Another thing I did want to say is we do have a communications guide specifically for digital signage managers. OASIS is not in there. I need to update that. But there are some other basic communications planning tips in there that you could also look at.
More acronyms?
There must be. I'm sure there must be.
I bet SMART is in there.
SMART probably is, yeah.
All right, thanks Debbie DeWitt, Marketing Communications Manager for Visix, for talking to me about the OASIS framework for content planning. Thanks, Debbie.
You're welcome, Derek.
For more free stuff, head to resources on Visix.com for guides, videos, and more to help with your visual communications. Please subscribe and share, and contact us for information about our digital signage solutions.